Staff Nursing Retention in the Emergency Department. A Change Project by Matthew Suffer. As a new grad nurse, I was excited to begin a career in nursing. I had completed my coursework, received my associate's degree, passed my boards, and accepted my first job as a registered nurse in the emergency department of Raleigh General Hospital. So you can imagine my disappointment and confusion when I learned that most of my nursing friends who I'd gotten to know over the years when I worked as a paramedic were leaving in droves to take other jobs at different facilities, most to take posts as travel nurses. It did not take long to figure out that the emergency department that I had visited and spent much of my time in as a paramedic was not the same as it once was. During my first week there were so many whispers and talks about travel nurses and the discord between them and the core staff nurses employed by the hospital. In this presentation, we will examine the cause of this discord and propose change that could restore the peace and harmony of the emergency room that I had grown to love and enjoy over the years. When considering a subject for my change project, I interviewed several nurses in the emergency department, med-surg floor, and the nursing supervisor. There were several pretty good ideas that were discussed during the interviews, such as improvements to bedside shift reporting, dealing with dementia patients in the emergency room, and methods to prevent antisocial behavior within the emergency department. However, the subject that came up over and over again in conversations was, why are all the hospital staff nurses leaving, and where are they going? So I decided to dig a little deeper. When asked, why are you leaving? The most consistent answer was because. Why should I stay? I've worked here for several years. I make X amount on the hour, but they, the administration, want to bring in these travel nurses, and pay them 2 to 3 times what I make. They would usually continue by stating, if that is the case, what is keeping me from leaving and taking a traveler's position and doing the same thing at a different facility? I couldn't help but think, but were they wrong? For the design of this study, I considered several research designs. These included quantitative versus qualitative or exploratory, experimental versus non-experimental or observational, etc. For this, I felt that a descriptive cross-sectional study design fits best. I chose this design because it allows me to measure factors at a specific point in time for a defined population. My interviews led me to develop my research question, which was for the emergency department nurses at Raleigh General Hospital. Would increasing base pay by 25% improve staff retention in comparison to the current practice? In short, yes. I believe that making the staff nursing base pay competitive would result in improved retention, because this was the number one reason given for everybody's departure. My proposed change would be implementing a hospital-wide policy to increase base pay of the staff nurses, making them more competitive. The current problem in the Raleigh General Emergency Room is retention of staff nurses. It has become increasingly hard to keep staff nurses due to the gap in pay between the staff nurse and the travel nurse. Although staff nurses get full-time benefits, most are looking at the staggering differences in pay to perform the same jobs. This has created much dissatisfaction between them. I propose that in order to increase nursing retention, staff nurses would receive a 25% raise in pay in order to make their wages more competitive with the travelers. Other hospitals have also offered sign-on bonuses, loan forgiveness, tuition assistance, and pay increases in order to proactively slow turnover rates, and this strategy has shown some positive results. The aim of this project would be to ultimately implement a hospital-wide policy to increase the base pay of the staff nurses by 25%, making them more competitive. And that would restore peace and harmony of the emergency department by decreasing tension between staff nurses and travel nurses, and increase the overall job satisfaction for the current and future staff nurses. The evidence I have found that supports my project kind of speaks for itself. ER nurses are leaving in droves to take jobs at other facilities as travelers themselves. Why are all the hospital staff nurses leaving? Responses from current staff: why should I stay? Travelers make 2 to 3 times more than what I make. This scenario appears to repeat itself over and over. Each week, more are leaving, and each week, it's for the same reasons. Although, while going through the many studies, it was difficult to tease out some of the hard numbers related to staff nurse satisfaction. A general consensus was gathered that job satisfaction was directly related to money made for a job well done. This seems to support the data that was gathered through interviews with current coworkers in the emergency department and others. There have been many general satisfaction surveys conducted, and most appear to point to the rise in pay for travel nursing that is cited for reasons for leaving a particular facility. There is no doubt that these nurses love what they do and love caring for their patients. Furthermore, they're very good at it. It is my belief that if the staff nursing wages were raised to be comparable to what is being paid to the travelers, most would not be leaving. Granted, the pay could not be the same because staff nurses do enjoy many in-house benefits such as health insurance and 401k. But it should be close enough to where they are not willing to forego the insurance for better money that they have, and that way they can afford to purchase their own insurance. There are many change theories, most of which are based on the classic theory of change proposed by Kurt Lewin in 1951, who was considered the father of social psychology. He theorized that a 3-stage model of change known as unfreeze, change, refreeze model requires prior learning to be rejected and replaced. During the unfreezing, the need for change must be recognized. During the moving stage or change stage, change is initiated after a careful process of planning. During refreezing, change becomes operational. For this theory to be applied to my proposed change, first the hospital administrators would have to recognize that there is a definite need for change. Second, a hospital-wide policy would be initiated to increase base pay of staff nurses. The change stage, which is also called moving to a new level or movement, involves a process of change in thoughts, feelings, behavior, or all three. That is, in some ways, more liberating or more productive. And lastly, the new policy would become not just a new habit, but the new standard operating procedure. Without this final stage, it can be easy for the administration to go back to old habits. A May report from McKinsey found more than 22% of nurses were considering leaving their jobs for a role outside of nursing or to retire altogether. Contention between core staff and contract labor is a growing problem, especially as travel nurse rates continue at record levels. Hospitals around the U.S., including large academic medical centers like Vanderbilt University, have been forced to rely on travel nurses to keep their intensive care units fully staffed. While in Ohio, some facilities were offering bonuses to keep its nurses from leaving. Others got pizza. These inconsistencies have made job satisfaction and team morale very low at this point in the pandemic. In 2020, emergency nurses' turnover rate had increased to 20%, still exceeding the national average of 18.7%. New grad nurses make up approximately 10% of the staff in acute care settings, with 23.9% of those leaving within the first year. Some hospitals are proactively trying to stop the turnover, offering big sign-on bonuses to permanent nurses, as well as loan forgiveness and tuition assistance. This strategy has shown some positive results and is why I would like to see similar policies enacted in Raleigh General Hospital. Although they've always been paid more for their flexibility, some traveling ICU nurses can now pull in as much as $10,000 per week, which can be several times more than what staff nurses earn. Creating work environments to help emergency nurses find meaning and enjoyment in their work is crucial to staff retention. Motivated by higher pay, new travel nurses who took their first positions during the pandemic now have the happiest levels compared with the other two groups, and most want to continue as travel nurses. Currently, the national average turnover rates are between 8.8% and 37%, depending on the geographic location and nursing specialty. Validity is a measurement context is the degree to which an instrument is measuring the construct it purports to measure, while reliability, broadly speaking, is the extent to which scores are free from measurement error. It can also be defined as the extent to which scores for people who have not changed are the same repeated measurements, noting consistency and the absence of variation. Reflecting on my leadership interview, I interviewed Stephanie Hatcher, RN BSN. She is the current day shift nursing supervisor at Raleigh General. I also consider her an exceptional leader. Stephanie began her career nursing in 2009 as a trauma extern and later graduating with her Bachelor of Nursing Science degree in 2012. She worked for Charleston Area Medical Center in the trauma ICU from 2009 to early 2017. During her tenure at CAMC, she served on the core team, PEDS trauma teams, and was one of few who were trained to do continuous renal replacement therapy. In 2015, she obtained her critical care transport RN certification and worked part-time for Kanawha County Ambulance on the ground transport crew. In August of 2016, she decided to drop to part-time at CAMC and work full-time at Raleigh General in the emergency department. She continued to work in the emergency room until November of 2018 when she was transferred to her current assignment as nursing supervisor. Some of her daily responsibilities include checking the census, obtaining the OR schedule, cath lab schedule, bed huddle, safety huddle, MET call, code blue, and trauma scribes, facility bed coordinator, and staffing schedules, just to name a few. According to Stephanie, her leadership style depends on the situation she's in. For example, she states that much of the time she tends to be more democratic. Democratic style or leadership style includes the group when decisions are made and motivates by supporting staff achievements. Stephanie believes that she has been able to foster teamwork and collaboration between teams by providing an avenue for open communication. She continues to inspire others and continues to inspire me to want to become a nursing leader. She is a wealth of knowledge and is very eager to share her experiences for the good of others that others may learn. In summary, I have identified a major issue with staff nurse retention in the emergency department in particular. The number one reason given for staff nurses wanting to leave is because they feel betrayed or punished for being loyal to a company by them making so much less than contract travel nurses being brought into the ER to fill vacancies that are due to the nationwide nursing shortage. I propose a new hospital wide policy be adopted to make staff nurses pay more competitive with those of the travel nurses. These loyal nurses should be rewarded for their years of service rather than made to feel that they are worth less than the travel nurses. And this concludes our presentation.